a little bit of a quicker video that's going to be a little bit more rapid fire than I'm used to, than you guys might be used to from me. Um, this is in part due to time restraints, but also due to the fact that this is kind of a newer video topic for me. Um, so I'm sort of getting the hang of it, and I just want to sort of put this as a taste tester out here just to see what people are feeling. So I'm doing this video, just a quick little video on Warhammer, because it is a hobby that I have been planning to get into for like a year, and I have been doing like a bunch of reading up on it, and I have gotten a few models and put them together and all that. So I just figured I'd put this out here as sort of like an introduction to another hobby that I do. I think I put in this intro video. But first, a quick message from our sponsor, um, and that is the Tyranids. Um, if people are watching this video and are not familiar with Warhammer, really easy way really easy way to describe these guys. These are objectively better than everything else in Warhammer, bar none. That is all we need. That is all. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. If if that is all the information you needed, and you're interested in Warhammer, go buy a Tyranid army. That's all I need. That's it. That's it. Anyway, but but no, seriously. Um, now that that's done, sorry, this video is about Tyranids. This is a taste tester video. So I was gonna do a more general sort of just like Warhammer entry video, but realistically, I'm not the guy you're gonna come to for an explanation on the introduction of a hobby, right? So, but at the same time, I am gonna keep things super simple in case that is the case. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. But before I digress too far into a fully neurotic pile, I'm going to get to the point. So I am basically taking this video to both taste test Warhammer to you guys, but also to do so by explaining my favorite Warhammer faction and how they work in both the story and in the game. And hopefully, for anyone who is not familiar with either, they sort of get the idea as I go on, so that if for those of you who are familiar with what I'm talking about, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm still learning the hobby. I'm still learning the game. I'm still researching the lore. I'm not the expert. And for those of you who are new, um, sit back, relax. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. That's not the right word, but anyway, before I digress, we're going to do lore first. So imagine this, like little story time for everybody. So Tyranids, right? We're going to get to them. First, a little bit of context. Imagine you are humanity. I mean, like, okay, like you are humanity, but like in the far future, right? Uh, like the kind of far future where you are both technologically superior to present day people, but also technologically stagnant in that you have the technology of the far future, but you don't have the understanding of the far future technology that you used to get there, right? So you are humanity in like sort of a a dark age of technology and understanding, but you're also like extremely advanced compared to um, like present day humanity. Like you have spaceships, you have incredible postmodern war technology, like a lot of like you have cybernetics, all these crazy science fiction technological marvels. Um, but like nobody knows how they work, with the exception of like a few people compared to respectively speaking, of course. But we've also kept religion at the same time. We're also like religious zealots at the exact same time. So we're super technologically advanced. We have next to no technological understanding of the setting we find ourselves in. Um, we are in constant war, and we are super religious, but all of present day religion is basically gone and has been replaced by one religion, which is worshiping a dead guy that sits on a chair every day, and that's God now. So okay, you're humanity, right? Now as I said, you are in constant war. You have been in constant war for 10,000 years, but most people don't actually know how long you've been in war. All they know is just you're born, you eat, you sleep, you go fight, you die, all that crap. Um, but most people don't know how long it's been going on. All they know is that they're like, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But who are we fighting against, right? Who are we fighting against? Well, one, we are fighting against eldritch horrors. I don't. Yeah, okay, no, I got the right picture. Um, so the first thing you're fighting are the forces of chaos, which, to put it in as simple a term as I can possibly imagine, is like they are demons from, I was gonna say the upside down, but no, like they are demons from like another. I guess also we will grossly oversimplify and say that they're demons from another dimension. Okay, they're from another dimension, but it's also um, individuals from our dimension who became corrupted by this dimension, or from entities in this dimension, or like by demons from there or whatever, and they become affiliated with that dimension, and those are known as the forces of chaos, right? Um, so the forces of chaos are one of the biggest threats that we humans are facing um, in this far future, but they are not the only ones, because you also have these other alien species that have colonized the um, that have populated the galaxy, because that is the setting in which we are looking. So you have orcs, which are uh, essentially like Lord of the Rings orcs, but with kind of Toon Force, but also like caricatured British culture in a sense. But like they are orcs in like their simplest sense. If you were to imagine like a stereotypical orc in a fantasy setting, take that, like copy paste that from that fantasy setting into a science fiction setting and give them all the big guns and the planets to invade, and you will and like the power of make believe, and that is kind of what you're gonna get, right? Um, that's like, again, we're oversimplifying here, but that is basically what you get. Then you get the Tau, which again we're going to grossly oversimplify here. Are essentially the new kids on the block. They are, how like in most science fiction settings, the humans are depicted as like the young, inexperienced race when it comes to like dealing with extraterrestrial life and space travel and all that stuff. That's these guys. These the Tau have been around for much less time as like an interstellar species than humans. So, like Warhammer 40k, it's called Warhammer 40k because you're in like the 41st. I think we're in the 42nd. I don't remember. But like it's like 40,000 years, like 40,000 AD, I guess. Um, Again, oversimplifying. I am getting my specific facts incredibly wrong right now. But the Tau have been around for, I think, 6,000 years only, as opposed to like humanity having like history that goes back way farther than that. So the Tau have only been kicking it for a little while, but they're incredibly technologically advanced, and they fall into like a caste system that you could probably argue is either communist or authoritarian. I'm not. We're not getting political this video, um, but either way, they're like the tech guys, but they're not very like they're not very savage. They're kind of like your. This is gonna sound like Tau propaganda, but like they strike me as more like the peacemakers, kind of. They're definitely not like strictly peaceful. They engage in war like similarly to all the other factions in Warhammer, because that is the name of the game. But Yeah, so they're the new kids. And then you have the Eldar, which are super old species. They are also kind of in their own dark age, but like it was 5 billion times worse. Um, because they inadvertently fed the forces of chaos in their heyday and created a really bad situation for themselves. It's honestly really interesting. If you get like deeper into it, I'm not, again, this is not the video, and I'm not the guy to explain it. Uh, but the Eldar are like they are closely tied to some aspects of chaos. I mean, all the species are, but the Eldar especially are like closely tied to certain specific aspects of the force of chaos. And they're a much older species. They're kind of like your space elves. Like they're obviously like super technologically advanced, um, but they kind of fulfill that niche of like they don't really fill a more fantastical element. But again, they're to oversimplify, they are your space elves. And then you have your Drukari, who are dark space elves because they're like also Eldar, but they're specifically like dark Eldar. I am probably getting that wrong, but like they are, when you really cut down to it, they are Eldar. I'm just separating them because they are vastly different to play in the tabletop, but like they are acknowledged separately. They are acknowledged as separate factions. Although they are like they have the same ancestor species. Like they are like the same. If you really got down to it, they are like the same ancestry. Um, and then you have the Necrons, who are somehow even older than the Eldar, and these guys are. This is a robot faction. This is a robot faction. These are guys who were not always robots. They were not born robots. They became robots because of Space Jesus. Except Space Jesus wasn't Space Jesus. It was like Space Satan, and there was like a lot of them. Like there's more than one. There were several Space Satans, like Space Lucifer, Space Beelzebub. I I don't know how many more, but like a lot of them, right? And they gave the Necrons, who were originally called the Necron tier, um, robot bodies because their flesh and blood bodies were bad, like objectively bad, and they couldn't live very long. But the thing is, the Necrons kind of got screwed in the deal, and they ended up sort of having a dominion over the galaxy. But again, super long time ago, like 60 million years ago, long time ago, and so they all went to sleep because they were tired. We are oversimplifying here for the fifth time, but they are becoming relevant again in Warhammer because they are waking up. And so all of these factions are all together. They're stuck in the same galaxy as each other, and they're all warring for supremacy and like dominion as they fight against each other and themselves. And like there are some patterns that emerge, like if I recall correctly, humanity is kind of they're not allied with, but they're typically kinder to the Eldar or like the Craft World Eldar, so not the Drukari, like the Eldar, not the Drukari, and the Tau they're like more buddy buddy with, but like they really don't like the Necrons and they really don't like the Drukari, and they really don't like the Orcs, but the Orcs really like the humans, so that you get like little patterns in there, right? But the general gist of everything is that everything sucks and everyone is miserable. So I ask you the question from here: does it get worse? Yes, yes, it does. Enter the Tyranids. Now, notice how I haven't spoken about the Tyranids yet. That is because they are not from this galaxy. They are an interstellar force that appeared very recently. So you know how I've been saying all these species have been vying for galactic dominion for all this time. Like the Tau have been like 6,000 years. Humanity's been whenever they became spacefaring. So it's not been 40,000 years, but it's been like a good amount of, at least like half of that. The Eldar, Drukhari, and Necrons have been like for millions of years. The Orcs have also been like for millions of years. But the Tyranids only showed up, or at least we only knew about them very recently. Like I want to say it was like the year like around 40,000. So like right as the lore sort of picks up is when we encounter the Tyranids, and the Tyranids are fun because they really don't have a lot of the motivations or like the philosophy or the ideologies of other species, right? Because like with the humans and the Eldar and the Orcs and the Necrons and the Drukhari and the Tau, they all have their own like respective culture and their own ideologies and their own like morals that they follow. Even in these times of extreme war, they all have like these defining characteristics that can sort of like keep them in check or hinder them or cause them to be negotiable. Like there is the factor for peace within each species, regardless of how difficult it may be to attain. But the Tyranids, um, they don't have that. They don't have that. Their only function is to eat. And when I say eat, I mean like everything. Like biomass is everything that lives, right? So what the Tyranids will do as an invasion force is, well, first of all, everything's organic. They are not technologically advanced in that they have no technology. All of their facilities and all of their weapons and all of their like quote unquote technology is all organic. It is all the product of a sentient uh, presence called the hive mind, which controls the entire species through sort of proxies. So the hive mind is this presence that like it exists like outside of the galaxy, just as the Tyranids do, from like wherever it came from, and it controls the entire species psychically, or like telepathically through larger organisms that connect the hive mind to all the like the little guys, of which there are like trillions and trillions and trillions, and that's probably understating it. Like the Tyranids are like endless, and all they do is eat. So they will absorb all living matter, all organic matter, everything that could be considered a resource for organic matter gets consumed. And they will do this on a planetary scale because they arrive in ships that are living creatures. This is the bit, right? This is the gimmick with Tyranids, is that everything is alive. Um, the ships are living creatures. The infantry are living creatures, obviously. The hive mind is a living thing, although we don't know what it is. But everything is organic. Everything is flesh. So when I say that they eat everything, I mean like the Tyranids will drop on a planet, right? And they will obviously kill everything that lives and decompose it synthetically into something just called biomass, just like a generic nutritious substance, right? But they will do this with all living matter, like the water that makes up the oceans, the air that is contained in the atmosphere, like everything, absolutely everything. They will leave the planet a shell, and then they'll just pick up and move on to the next one. And they do this to every planet they come across, and the only goal is to eat. So the Tyranids sort of present themselves as this sudden and overwhelming threat to the entire galaxy, um, where now all these factions are like at odds with each other, and there's like no chance of them all like coming together to defeat a greater threat. But they kind of also don't have a choice. So this is the appeal of the Tyranids to me in lore, is that they first of all they look cool, and second of all they are like single-mindedly purposed. I think that's really cool. So anyway, before I glaze them a little too hard and people start clicking off the video, um, we'll just and on the note that again, if we were to grossly oversimplify, Tyranids are that really cool faction that arrived late to everything. They are showing up in like season 5 of this TV show. If season one was like if season one was like all of these factions starting to fight each other, yeah, this is like season 5 to 10. Like we're late into it. This is like a completely new threat. Um, so the reasons again to get a little bit more specific. This again, I promise this will be fast. We'll get to the gameplay soon. The reasons why I think the Tyranids are really cool specifically is the hive mind just controlling everything and being a massive presence. The sheer size of their numbers and their fleets making them like an overwhelming threat, how they control the battlefield, how they strip resources off of everything and convert it into more fuel for the army, and there's nothing holding them back except their own hunger, which is just so baller. I can't. Anyway, sorry. On to the gameplay. So disclaimer: I have not played a game of Warhammer 40k tabletop yet. That is because I currently do not have enough units for an army because it costs money. Yeah. So, but that is going to happen. That is going to happen, and when it does, I will update this. Um, but until then, I'm just going to have to give people spark notes based on what I know. So, my understanding of Tyranids, for those who are familiar or are not familiar, my understanding of Tyranids is that um, they're flexible. They are a flexible faction to play as. There's some factions where you want to focus on numbers, or there's some factions where you want to focus on like melee versus range, or some factions want you to focus on like one big thing and like bodyguards. But Tyranids have a bunch of different units that all sort of like do their own thing independently and are then connected by the hive mind. So you can run kind of whatever you want, obviously depending on how you build an army, like how you build your faction with specific units. It will function better or worse depending on how it's designed, but generally you get to sort of play around with it a little bit. Again, as I mentioned, it acts as the hive mind that connects the army, uh, which uh, will become more detailed later, but it is a big factor in the effectiveness of Tyranids and being able to control them. Which, speaking of, another big thing about Tyranids is controlling the field. Now, obviously, every faction wants to control the field, right? But Tyranids have a lot of units that can specialize in cutting off certain areas or getting into certain areas of a battlefield and sort of just wreaking havoc or claiming control over a site, right? So what sets the bugs apart more specifically? So again, you have your flexibility, you have your hive mind axis, which are referred to as synapse units. These are again your bigger units that I previously mentioned that connect the hive mind to the entire army. And these are, I mean, this is a unique function of Tyranids, but it allows you to do a lot of interesting things with coordinating your Tyranids. And conversely, without synapse units connecting your units, you lose a lot of benefits that you get that you would normally have access to. So um, you're kind of playing like two games in one, in that you have to manage your objectives as any faction would, but you also want to make sure that you are prioritizing keeping your synapse units within range of your other units so that you can continue to give them the benefits of the hive mind. And then the other thing is individual unit strength, because again, you could build a massive swarm of little guys, right? But you could also build a few really big dudes that just tear through everything, right? This is not entirely unique to Tyranids. Every faction has this kind of concept where you can just put a bunch of big dudes on your field and just go ham with it. But Tyranids are kind of good with it in that they are efficient with their big units, so you can have these units with their individual strength, and then you can still have little guys at the same time, which again goes into the flexibility bit. I'm digressing. So that is all for Warhammer this week. Um, this has been a circular session in that I don't feel like I actually went over very much, but I hope that it at least proved interesting enough to get people interested in watching more of this. Um, Obviously, if I do this again, it's going to have more uh, detail and preparation behind it. This was just sort of like a last minute put together thing. But I also did want to do this because I wanted to gauge people's interest because Warhammer is something that I am into. Anyway, that's everything. I will see you guys this week. Yeah.